Hannah Elizabeth Graham was a beacon of light, brilliant, funny, and fiercely loyal. At 18, she thrived at the University of Virginia, balancing academics and friendships with infectious energy. Friends described her as someone who could fill a room with laughter and kindness. She was an athlete, a skier, but her ambitions were now rooted in Charlottesville, a place that felt safe. The fall of 2014 was meant to be another chapter in her promising story. But beneath the surface of this vibrant community, a darkness lurked, unnoticed. No one could have imagined that this place of promise would soon become the backdrop for unimaginable loss. Hannah's journey was just beginning, but a predator was waiting in the shadows. On Friday, September 12, 2014, Hannah and her friends eagerly anticipated a night of fun. The evening began at a local restaurant, a popular spot for students to gather and unwind after a long week of classes. There was a palpable sense of excitement in the air, a feeling of freedom and camaraderie that comes with college life. As the night progressed, the group decided to move the party to an off-campus house, where music and laughter spilled out into the night. The energy was infectious, drawing more and more students into its orbit. The evening was filled with laughter and music, the kind that makes you forget your worries and simply enjoy the moment. Friends danced, sang, and shared stories, creating memories that would last a lifetime. It was a typical college party, full of youthful exuberance and carefree abandon. But as midnight approached, the atmosphere began to shift. Hannah, having consumed a significant amount of alcohol, became heavily intoxicated, her judgment clouded, and her movements unsteady. Feeling unwell and disoriented, Hannah made the decision to leave the party alone, stepping out into the cool night air. It was a decision that would have devastating consequences. Back inside, her friends, caught up in the revelry, assumed she'd made it home safely, unaware of the danger she was about to face. They continued to enjoy the party, oblivious to the unfolding tragedy. Instead of heading home, Hannah, in her intoxicated state, became disoriented, wandering Charlottesville's downtown mall, a normally bustling area that was now eerily quiet and deserted. Grainy surveillance cameras captured her stumbling, her movements erratic and unsteady as she navigated the empty streets. She was clearly vulnerable and in need of assistance. She was alone and vulnerable, a young woman lost in the darkness, unaware of the predators that might be lurking nearby. The night held a palpable sense of foreboding. At 12:56 a.m., in a desperate attempt to find help, she texted a friend, her words slurred and her thoughts confused. She confessed that she was lost and didn't feel well, her message a cry for help in the digital wilderness. It was a plea that would ultimately go unanswered in time. That text was the last message anyone would ever receive from her, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the dangers that lurk in the shadows. Witnesses later recalled hearing a young woman's voice cutting through the silence of the night, a voice filled with fear and defiance. "I'm not getting in the car with you," she declared, her words a desperate attempt to assert control in a situation that was rapidly spiraling out of her grasp. It was a final act of resistance, a moment of bravery in the face of unimaginable terror. It was a stand against the darkness. After that chilling declaration, Hannah vanished into the night, swallowed up by the darkness and leaving behind a void that would never be filled. The city settled into quiet, its streets empty and still, unaware of the tragedy that had just unfolded within its borders. The sleeping city was unaware that a nightmare had begun, a nightmare that would shatter the peace and tranquility of the community. Her friends and family were blissfully unaware of the danger she faced, sleeping soundly in their beds, dreaming of a brighter tomorrow. The celebration was over, the music silenced, and the laughter faded away, leaving behind only the echoes of a night that had taken a dark and unexpected turn. Fear and uncertainty had taken its place, casting a long shadow over the city and its inhabitants. The sense of unease was palpable. Hannah had disappeared from the well-lit paths of her college town, vanishing without a trace and leaving behind a community in shock and disbelief. Her fate was now in the hands of a stranger in the dark, a faceless figure who held the key to her disappearance and the answer to the questions that haunted the city. By Sunday, September 14th, Hannah's absence had become a crisis. Friends, unable to reach her, contacted police, launching a massive search. News of her disappearance spread rapidly, uniting the community in fear and determination. Law enforcement and thousands of volunteers scoured Charlottesville, distributing flyers and searching fields and woods. Candlelight vigils flickered with hope, but as days passed, hope began to fade. Police pieced together her last known movements from surveillance footage, desperate for a clue. The city held its breath, waiting for a breakthrough that never came. Flyers with her face became a painful reminder of her absence. The search uncovered no answers, only more questions. The investigation was about to shift, from finding Hannah to finding her abductor. Reviewing countless hours of surveillance footage, investigators meticulously pieced together the events of that fateful night. They were searching for any clue, any anomaly that could lead them to Hannah. Then a breakthrough. A man walking near Hannah, then beside her, arm around her shoulders. The investigators zoomed in, enhanced the image, and ran facial recognition software. The system returned a match. Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr., a name that would soon become synonymous with fear and suspicion in Charlottesville. Matthew was a hospital technician and part-time taxi driver, seemingly an ordinary member of the community. But beneath the surface lurked a dark and troubling past. His past was troubling, a history that painted a disturbing picture of a man with a pattern of predatory behavior. Accusations of sexual assault at 2 universities hung over him, casting a long shadow on his character. Both times he left before investigations concluded, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and lingering doubts. Years earlier, in 2005, a woman was raped in Fairfax County. The case remained unsolved, a cold case file gathering dust. DNA was collected from the scene, meticulously preserved, but the case went cold, a stark reminder of the limitations of forensic science at the time. On the night Hannah disappeared, the timeline of Matthew's movements became a critical piece of the puzzle. Matthew was seen making unwanted advances toward women in bars, his behavior raising red flags for investigators. He was searching for an opportunity, a vulnerable target to exploit. And when he saw Hannah alone, walking without her friends, he found his target. The footage told a chilling story, a narrative of calculated intent and sinister purpose. A predator closing in on his prey, the hunter stalking his unsuspecting victim. The man who seemed to help, the one who appeared to be a good Samaritan, was leading her to an unimaginable fate, a nightmare from which she might never awaken. The pieces were coming together. The puzzle of Hannah's disappearance was slowly being assembled. Matthew was now the focus of the investigation, the prime suspect in a case that gripped the nation. Police needed more than video. Circumstantial evidence alone wouldn't be enough to secure a conviction. They needed evidence tying him directly to Hannah, irrefutable proof that would stand up in court. The search zeroed in on his apartment, a place that held the potential to unlock the secrets of Hannah's disappearance. Car, a potential crime scene on wheels, and his movements after Hannah vanished, every step scrutinized, every turn analyzed. The shadow in the frame now had a name, a face, and a history that painted him as a dangerous threat. The hunt for answers became a hunt for Jesse Matthew, a desperate race against time to bring Hannah home. The community's fear was now focused on a single suspect, a man who had shattered their sense of security and left them grappling with the unthinkable. With Jesse Matthew identified as the prime suspect in Hannah Graham's disappearance, the investigation intensified. Law enforcement agencies mobilized, focusing all their resources on locating him and uncovering any information that could lead to Hannah's safe return. His mugshot was plastered across news outlets and social media, making him one of the most wanted men in the country. Police swiftly executed search warrants on his apartment and car, meticulously combing through every inch for any sign of Hannah or any clues that could connect him to her disappearance. The apartment building became a hive of activity as investigators worked tirelessly. The search yielded a crucial breakthrough. Traces of Hannah's DNA were discovered in Matthew's car and apartment. This discovery provided a significant link between Matthew and Hannah, solidifying him as the primary suspect. The forensic lab buzzed with activity as technicians worked around the clock to analyze the evidence. Adding to the mounting evidence, bloodhounds were brought in to trace Hannah's scent. The highly trained dogs followed her trail directly to Matthew's door, further implicating him in her disappearance. The K9 unit played a vital role in piecing together the puzzle. The scent also led investigators to his car and a nearby dumpster, where additional items of interest were recovered. The orange car became a focal point of the investigation, its every detail scrutinized for potential clues. The net was closing in rapidly on Jesse Matthew. The evidence was stacking up, painting a grim picture and intensifying the pressure on law enforcement to bring him to justice. In a surprising turn of events, on September 20th, Matthew walked into the police station, seemingly ready to face the music. He requested a lawyer, indicating an awareness of the gravity of the situation and the potential legal ramifications he faced. But before his attorney could arrive, Matthew made a desperate move. He fled the police station, turning himself into a fugitive. This act of defiance triggered a nationwide manhunt, with law enforcement agencies across the country coordinating their efforts to track him down. His face was broadcast everywhere, plastered on wanted posters, news broadcasts, and social media feeds, making it nearly impossible for him to remain hidden. For 4 agonizing days, he evaded capture, managing to stay one step ahead of the authorities. This prolonged evasion only served to heighten public anxiety and fear, as the community desperately hoped for Hannah's safe return. Finally, on September 24th, a break in the case came when authorities located him camping near Galveston, Texas, far from where Hannah had disappeared. He was arrested without incident, bringing an end to the frantic manhunt, and was subsequently extradited back to Virginia to face charges. His capture brought a collective sigh of relief to the community, but it did not bring the answers they desperately sought about Hannah's fate. Matthew was formally charged with abduction with intent to defile, a serious felony that carried a significant prison sentence. The evidence against him was mounting, but the most pressing and heartbreaking question remained unanswered. Where was Hannah Graham? The manhunt for Matthew was over, but the search for Hannah continued with unwavering determination. The community braced for the worst possible outcome, as hope began to fade with each passing day, leaving behind a sense of profound sadness and uncertainty. The search for truth and justice was far from finished, and the investigation continued to uncover the full extent of what happened to Hannah. The city waited with bated breath, desperate for closure and for Hannah to be found, clinging to the hope that she would be brought home safely. Weeks passed, hope dwindled, and the search shifted to recovery. On October 18, 2014, searchers found human remains in rural Albemarle County. The clothing matched what Hannah wore the night she vanished. The location was remote, not far from where Morgan Harrington's remains were found years earlier. The cause of death, homicidal violence, likely strangulation or suffocation. The news devastated Charlottesville and the nation. Forensic evidence from Hannah's body provided the final piece. DNA matched Jesse Matthew Jr. It also matched DNA from Morgan Harrington's 2009 murder. 2 mysteries were solved at once. Jesse Matthew was not just Hannah's killer, he was a serial predator. The shadow over Charlottesville was darker than anyone imagined. The community's worst fears were confirmed. The search for Hannah had ended in tragedy, but it brought long-awaited answers. DNA evidence linked Jesse Matthew to the murders of Hannah Graham and Morgan Harrington, and to a 2005 rape in Fairfax County. A decade-long pattern of violence was now clear. Past accusations at 2 universities were re-examined as early warning signs. Matthew had exploited the system, moving on before facing consequences. He hid in plain sight, working jobs that gave him access to the community. He preyed on vulnerability, targeting women who were alone or in need of help. The community's sense of safety was shattered. The case against Matthew was ironclad. Multiple murders and a violent assault, all tied to him by forensic evidence. The shadow that haunted Central Virginia was finally exposed. The focus now shifted to the courtroom where justice awaited. On February 10, 2015, Jesse Matthew Jr. was charged with Hannah Graham's murder and abduction. Prosecutors prepared for a difficult trial, but the families faced the agony of reliving their trauma. A plea agreement was reached. Matthew pleaded guilty to the murders of Hannah and Morgan and the 2005 Fairfax rape. By pleading guilty, he avoided the death penalty, but spared the families a prolonged trial. The families supported the deal, seeking closure, not vengeance. Matthew was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms with no chance of parole. Justice was delivered. His reign of terror was over. The legal chapter closed, but the impact of his crimes would ripple for years. The family's strength was a testament to their love for their daughters. Matthew was removed from society forever. The community could finally begin to heal. In the aftermath, Hannah's and Morgan's families became advocates for change. The Grahams pushed for expanded DNA collection laws in Virginia, closing loopholes that let predators slip through. Their efforts led to a landmark law in 2018, expanding mandatory DNA collection for certain misdemeanors. Morgan's mother founded Help Save the Next Girl, educating communities about safety and prevention. Memorials and scholarships were established in both young women's names. The community, though scarred, showed resilience and a renewed commitment to safety. The case sparked vital conversations about personal safety and the hidden dangers in familiar places. Hannah and Morgan are remembered for how they lived, with joy, kindness, and potential. Their legacy is a call to action: be vigilant, be kind, and help save the next girl. Their story continues to inspire change and hope.